Welcome to Chats Under the Cherry Tree.
I'm Tori, your host for today's session. I am Head of Licensing at Sweet Cherry Publishing, and today we're going to discuss our wonderful new Peppa Pig and Every Cherry collaboration. We also have here...
I'm Emma. I'm the head of Every Cherry Publishing. I specialise mainly in making reading accessible for as many people as possible. And we have...
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Price and I'm from Hasbro. I'm the Senior Publishing Manager and I'm very happy to be here, thank you for having me, to talk about our new licence and our new titles for Peppa Pig.
Excellent. So, let's start by... I think Peppa is a very well-known brand.
Mm-hmm. A British icon, you might say.
A British icon,
for sure.
Yes. And Peppa and her family have been through many an adventure. But recently, we have noticed a bit of a boom in popularity. So, Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I can, and I'm glad you noticed, because that is very true. So, yeah, Peppa and her family have had an incredible 18 months, which is around the time I joined Hasbro, so I won't take any credit for that. But, yes, I joined at an amazing time, and the brand is definitely having quite a resurgence. It's really not easy to maintain that kind of level of popularity, and Peppa will be celebrating, I think, 23 years coming up, and we'll soon be celebrating a 25th anniversary in 2029.
Makes us all feel old.
I know, exactly. I think it is really hard to maintain that level of engagement, and I think that's all about really strong storytelling, which remains engaging to your ever-changing audience, your ever-changing world. And Peppa's storylines are very much set in the real world, and I think that's really important, and they're relatable to families and specifically to children as well. They're real situations, real experiences, everyday life. And that's what I think families and children really love about Peppa. So first we had the Baby Evie story, which was just so heartwarming, and I think absolutely took the nation by storm. I think, everyone talked about Baby Evie. So we had the tease, what sex is the baby, what's the name of the baby, and then the birth. We appeared on national television, on GMTV, and everyone was talking about it. Friends, family.
It connected to so many people, didn't it? And I know so many women who were pregnant at the same time as Mummy Pig, and it's a big thing. If you were pregnant at the same time as Mummy Pig, it was huge. Yeah.
And then you had all the people who also, were called Evie when they announced the name, and we had the gender reveal at Battersea Power Station with the blue and the pink towers. So it was amazing, and it really did get the nation talking. Yeah. So Baby Evie was amazing. And then the big story at the beginning of this year was George's hearing journey, which is a very different story, not a commercial opportunity at all, but something that was very important, that was very authentic. Again, I think that really has captured people's hearts as well, especially the deaf community, who I think probably don't see themselves in this way, and that don't see themselves represented in something like Peppa Pig. And again, we've had so many heartwarming messages and responses from people about this story.
Yeah, definitely. So many children can now connect to it.
Yeah, and
show
see
even more. Yeah,
in
see
it.
themselves reflected.
I feel like sometimes, especially we've done work with the National Deaf Children's Society, and we made a teaching and learning resource to go with the hearing test book. And I actually learned quite a lot about the process of how somebody is who goes through the hearing test, and that whole process, and what that process looks like. And I think for anybody that comes out with needing to wear a hearing aid or anything like that, to be able to go on that journey with a lovable character like George, it makes it less daunting and scary.
Isn't it?
So George did it, so I can do it. So
it takes away a lot of the fear and the unknown, and the worries that children might feel about that occasion of going for that test.
100%, because I think it's so unfamiliar, and it really helps sort of like neutralise them and feel like they understand what they're going to be in for. The parents also know that as well, because like as adults we had no idea some of the intricacies of what would be going through in that process.
And that's why we work so closely with the National Deaf Children's Society to make sure that every step of the way and all that storytelling was so correct and authentic, and that we were representing the whole experience.
I think so. I think it did a very, very good job, and I also think for a child at that young age to be able to say, oh, I'm like George Pig,
Yeah.
that is something that you can give to a child that otherwise nobody else could give.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's empowering that child to think, oh, I'm just like George. And why wouldn't you want to be like George?
Yeah.
And also, as a mum who had children who watched Peppa a lot, it does explain why George's language didn't develop. It almost gives you almost an answer to that, and it built up, and now it's like, oh
Yeah, that's why he only said dinosaur for so long.
Yeah.
A real
Exactly.
very deep character arc to go across the show now, isn't it? And for such like a young show, it's such an involved sort of like characteristic there. So it's amazing that they've put it in such a familiar and friendly way to be like, this is going to be nice, going to be fun.
And working with celebrities as well is obviously, you know, it really raises the profile, but celebrities who are also deaf and who've also had issues themselves, you know, that was amazing to be able to do that and connect them to the story as well.
Exactly. And then obviously, Daddy
Most
Pig.
recently,
Pig's marathon. We can't. I mean, it only happened just recently. So at the weekend, Daddy Pig ran the London Marathon.
It's amazing.
Which was again a brilliant storyline because it looped right back. So he was fundraising for the National Deaf Children's Society, and his target was to raise £54,000, and it's 54,000 deaf children in the UK, which was the target.
Brilliant.
I think we smashed that target out of the water. But yes, that was the goal. So a really nice way to loop that storyline. But I think Daddy Pig has been maybe underrepresented, or you know, he's treated a bit of a buffoon and a bit of sort of a comedy character, and I think the point is to really take Daddy Pig a bit more seriously now, and running the marathon is a way for him to prove that he's setting a good example to his children, and raising that money. But I think, I don't know if you heard about the Harry Styles. Did you hear about Harry Styles?
Please tell.
Oh, so you didn't hear about this?
No.
So there was a rumour, and I don't know how this all started, I don't know, but it was completely organic. We didn't set this up at all. People thought that it was Harry Styles inside the costume.
In the costume. That would have been the most amazing thing.
Because he's trained with Joe Wicks, who was Daddy Pig's trainer, and he's also run marathons. He's a really great runner. And people, I don't know why, jumped to some conclusions that they didn't see him out on the course, that maybe it was him in the costume. So people were stopping, saying, can you reveal who you are? And they were like, well, I'm Daddy Pig, obviously.
I am
who else do you think I
am?
I'm Daddy Pig. So the PR was just a dream, because we had this whole level of the
And
Harry
he did it in
Styles.
like 5 hours or something, didn't he? And I was like,
5
that
hours
is
50.
incredible.
How did he do that?
I know, it was a hot day as well.
Yeah, it was.
I think it's so impressive, but also on a brand wise as well. I think it's so lovely that I think often children see these characters as real, and they encapsulate that, and they're like, this is my life and I'm living it with Peppa in the TV. But that doesn't often get to actually come out into reality, and it's so lovely.
He was running
to
the
connect
marathon
those.
in the series and in the books, but also actually there he was in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, the crowds, go Daddy Pig! Yeah, people holding up the sign. So yeah, that was amazing as well.
Brilliant.
So yes, and a great storyline.
Yes,
Yeah,
wonderful.
it really was.
Running for George.
Yeah. So, moving on from the highlights, we have come together as Hasbro and Every Cherry because we want to make sure that brilliant characters like Peppa and her family can be accessible to every community and every family. So obviously we worked together, but this partnership began, and you were one of the spearhead of it. Why did you feel that working with us was so important to Peppa?
Well, I really believe that all children deserve to enjoy a Peppa book. I mean, Peppa, like you say, it's got such great history, and I think every single child deserves to be able to enjoy and read a book about Peppa in whatever way that they can, and that might not be in a traditional way, and I just love the way Every Cherry planned to bring those books to life in a way that all children could access them, and that all, you know, the usual barriers would be removed to reading that they couldn't read in that traditional way. So I think it's really essential that all children have access to books, access to be able to buy those books in wherever they shop, wherever they live, and they can find editions that are accessible to them. So that was very important. And I also wanted to mention that I knew Emma, and from sort of not quite a different life, but my daughter has quite a lot of special needs and is severely autistic. She loves reading, however, that's one of her passions. But Emma was visiting her school and came to talk about Every Cherry and about SEN and books, and Orla got to meet Emma, and
amazing.
and Orla struggles to speak, and Emma really encouraged her to talk and brought her out of her shell, and they've been emailing each other ever since, which is just amazing, and she often talks about you.
Oh, does she?
Does.
But it was actually Orla that was the one that invited us to the school.
Yeah,
so it was her and her teacher that got in touch. And we went down to the school and I met Orla and we did a few sessions with different groups of children. But it was really, I think this is what Every Cherry is about. So for anyone who is listening that doesn't know, I used to be a teacher in specialist education for a long time. And I feel like when you move career and you start working with Peppa, you start working with other brands, and you become intertwined in the publishing industry. It's very easy to forget your roots and where you came from
and what we're doing it for
and so I'm always so passionate about making sure that we always go back to our roots. This is kind of going off track, but yesterday, I don't think I've told you this, we actually had a book submission from a specialist college about a book that they've created, and it was in video format of the book, why they've done it, and they did it in this almost like an advert of the book. And it's that is the key to Every Cherry. It's people understanding that Every Cherry is about making reading accessible, and the doors are open to everybody, including the people that read the books. And working with Orla, submissions like that, I hope that continues and that Every Cherry always sticks to its roots. But I think that is what can make books like Peppa be more organic and real, because actually a lot of the symbols that are in the books, they aren't just chosen by our team. We actually have a lot of people that look at the symbols.
A lot of focus groups,
a lot of focus groups. Like even this morning, we have a speech and language therapist that works with us, and she works at a place called Communicate, which is a huge speech and language therapist hub. And I messaged her this morning about a symbol in Peppa, because me and the team could not come to a conclusion. Neither could a lot of our focus groups are unsure of how to symbolise something, but it actually appeared in 3 separate Peppa books.
Right.
So we had to get it right. And so now we've brought in as many people as possible to give us the answer, and we finally got there.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The answer isn't just in me or the team, it's about working with the community, so working with people.
It's about connecting to people who will actually be reading the books, and making sure that they work for them.
And I think that your background is so important in all of this as well, and that that really resonated because of my daughter, and I think that was so important for us at Hasbro as well, to have your expertise and understanding of the community, and as being a teacher and knowing what those children need and what they would want. So that was important.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from definitely the Every Cherry message is easy to spread when it's for people who have a personal connection. So each of us have different ties to the special educational needs community and the education system there. But it's also trying to now get the message out a little bit wider and make people understand that there is such a huge number of children who actually do need these resources. Over 1.6 million, we wrote down the stat earlier. Over 1.6 million people diagnosed with SEND in the UK. And as we were saying, 13.6 of them don't have an education healthcare plan. So it makes the resources that Every Cherry can provide even more important, to just give them access to the books that they would want, not just that they would want, but they also need, because so many of them, they might have a school library, if they're lucky. We all know that they're struggling as well. But they might not have the accessible resources in the school library. I think it would actually be useful, just for anyone listening as well, just to explain that what our Every Cherry books actually look like too. Because for anyone who's not seen a Peppa Pig Every Cherry book, we have created symbolised picture books. They're very beautiful.
They are indeed.
So above each of the keywords in the story, we would have a small visual symbol that will help readers who rely more on those symbols than on text to move through the story. Obviously, we have our classic Every Cherry elements in there as well, including the embossed logo. We have a predictable yet lovely sort of format as well, so that readers don't feel like there's going to be any shocking surprises sort of thing on the next pages. They really keep like the consistency as they move through, and all of these wonderful elements that come together to create something that's as accessible as possible for a SEND reader, in addition to obviously our amazing free audiobook and free signing video.
That's what I was
done
going
a
to
sales
say.
pitch
I think you definitely did the
Great
sales pitch. Yeah, well done. But I think what I have really tried, and the team have tried to do, and obviously brands like Peppa are trying to do as well, is reading can be a challenge for somebody with a learning disability or somebody who's entering into that reading world. And so a package is what we've tried to create. So like Tori was saying, if somebody is reading a book and they're struggling because cognitively it is quite hard to read and comprehend exactly what you're reading, and although we've got so many things in place to help with that, like small shorter sentences, literal wording, symbolised text, we also have what I keep calling safety nets, so that children can watch the signed video of the book instead, so they can move out of the reading and still connect with the text, and or listen to the audiobook. So there are different avenues, and I think for a lot of people, reading is key, and you know, seeing all of these characters in stories that are accessible are key, but also to provide avenues where they can still listen and read the book, but in a way that suits them at that time. And like you said, breaking down these barriers and providing these safety nets to help them. So I think that is, for anyone listening, what Every Cherry's all about.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, reading is one of the biggest joys.
Yes, of course.
Well, and probably for us three who read a lot.
Yeah.
We were talking before we started about our favourite books, and
Yeah.
so we're all big bookworms. But not everyone is. But it is a huge joy, and I want everyone to be able to experience that. And there are a lot of people who maybe think they can't. Be a lover of books and reading because maybe it isn't accessible or it's too difficult or too daunting. And I think that's what this really does. Is to make those books accessible to them and make them lovers of books in the way that we are, and experience those real joys and
that's such
highs.
a key thing, isn't it? It's just making sure that everyone can access the same magic and the same adventure.
Exactly.
And it would be horrible to think that there's a whole community of children out there who might not be able to go on these magical adventures with Peppa and
lose
her family.
themselves in wonderful books.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I always go back to a key memory before, as a teacher, when a child carried a book into the classroom, clearly wanted to read it. I said, how far are you into the book? Are you enjoying it? And she turned to me and said, I can't read it. As if, how silly of me to ask. And that's the kind of thing that we want to stop. Like you said, reading is such a joy, and it's giving that quality and choice for children to be able to pick up a book and think, I can do it.
Yeah, and the same books as everyone else.
Yeah,
I think this is such a key thing, isn't it? Like
they're
why
not excluded from reading a book of Peppa or any other book, because you've done you've done great things to make all of those books accessible as well, so that they can enjoy the same books as everyone else in their own way.
Yes,
exactly.
And I think that's such a key point that connects to like why we think making popular brands accessible is so important. Because there are many children out there who might enjoy it on TV and be able to connect with the episodes because that's very visual, and maybe that's, you've got the audio there, you've got the visuals, it is very connectable. But once it gets into printed form, will really struggle and then won't be able to bring a book round that is the same as theirs. So I think the story that we've heard spoken about many times, haven't we?
We have.
So I think at the end of the day, most children, and probably adults to a point, want to be like everyone else, really.
Yeah, of course.
They don't want to stand out. They want to be like everyone else. They want to have their Peppa book or their whatever book they love, in the same way as everyone else does. And I think we're helping to achieve that.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on then to talk about the Peppa brand. Are there any steps that you think the brand is taking wider outside of the book world to be more inclusive? Like if we think about toys, apparel, that kind of thing. Are there any steps to make Peppa any more accessible? I don't know if this is
or
your
dream
area.
steps. Dream steps that you would like to see one day.
I think Peppa is an inclusive brand, and I think there are a lot of storylines and characters which are, and families which are becoming more inclusive.
Yes.
But I think we can do more, and we are planning to do more. And there's definitely plans with apparel, some clothing ranges and other toys. We had a campaign with character.com, which was called Hear the Fun campaign. I don't know if you saw that, which was related to one of the George toys that was released recently. So there's more happening, there's more coming. But I think it is definitely an area where we want to do more, and we want to be better represented.
Because I think when it comes to making things that are more accessible, Peppa is one of those brands that, having been around for so long, having been such a key part of like British culture, it also has the power to push things forward. So I think when an important brand does something like that, people listen.
They do.
So this is why, the key things with Evie and the marathon and George and everything happening, people have listened and they have taken it upon themselves. So I think we've collectively got the power to make a difference there.
But I still think it's really important that it's done thoughtfully and authentically. Like that's, I think, this is the biggest and most important thing, that it's not shoehorned into content, or it's not done just for the sake of it, or it's not tokenistic, and it's done in a very authentic and real way that people understand that. They can quickly see if it's something that's just trying to be forced.
Yes,
so I think that's so important.
And I think that's one of the things where every cherry and the Peppa brand come together, because I think creating symbolised text, it's not easy. So we've created, I think we're on 17,000 symbols now since we began about 2 years ago. We probably started this process of creating symbols purposely for publishing that link to the text. So obviously there are many symbol sets out there, but our particular symbol set provides unique symbols for each book it creates. So Peppa, for example, has its own Peppa library of symbols, which we can use and obviously use assets for. But again, it is about trying to not be tokenistic and actually do it properly, like you were saying with Peppa, because if we provide something that surface level looks accessible, as soon as it hits the community, what is it for? So it always comes back to, I think, what are we doing this for? And I think Peppa have nailed it with the campaigns that you've done recently. Obviously we're talking about George as well, but the Daddy Pig one and Evie, the gender reveal, all of that, like you see posts, it's so relatable. When you're scrolling online, so many people do these gender reveals, and the fact that Mummy Pig, that they did it as well, it's just so brilliant.
They've had a lot of fun with it, I think, and that's been so important as well. They don't take themselves too seriously, and they really have had a lot of fun with these campaigns, and that's resonated, and I think that's really why people have really engaged so much.
I think that's true, and I think that's how it connects to its audience so well, even after you say 20 plus years. It's the fact that there's still so much fun in there, and people can tell from a mile off if there are things that just tick boxing, which is why
it's the brand is funny, the storylines are fun,
exactly.
The humour, as we know, is so important in children's books as well, so I think that it works. Works so well.
I also feel like, and perhaps this might just be my house, but it was also with my friends, so when we found out about George's hearing journey and Evie, friends would be like, have you heard about Mummy Pig?
Yes.
And it became part of the daily gossip.
It was.
At the barbecue this weekend with friends, mostly adults, some children there, and they were like, all saying, while the children were off playing, pure adult conversation, did you know Daddy Pig's running the marathon this weekend? I was like, yes, I did actually. And they were like, have you seen it? Oh my gosh,
it was on the front cover of Runner's World as well, which was it was just all of it brilliant.
It was brilliant, but I think it's because as well, as a parent who watched Peppa, because you watch with your children, don't you? You do grow with you
carry on watching when they've left the room.
Yeah, you do. You do. And actually, as we've been making this as a team, we actually have a little bit of a competition going, which we are trying to work out which staff member knows Peppa the best. And sometimes in our scheduling meetings, we'll base a book on an episode. You're so lucky to get that episode. I love that episode. And then we can walk past computers and people are watching the episode.
And
I'm like, when we were coming up with our list of the books that we wanted to do, me and the Every Cherry team did a Peppa Day.
Right.
Where we allotted
Just
a
binged
whole
Peppa.
day to Peppa, and we went through as many episodes as we could to try and collate the best books for the Sen community that had a bit of the new gossip, a bit of the old foundation, and then bring it all together into a library that people can buy, that's accessible, but that has the magic of Peppa in everything.
And that's dedication. That really is. I mean, not everyone would do that. So that's one of the reasons why we've loved working with you as well, because, you know, that passion and that level of detail, not everyone would go spend a day watching all the episodes.
We thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm sure you did. But not everyone would go to those lengths. So I think, again, you know, it's that dedication.
It's like you're saying, it's the authenticity behind it, isn't it? Because usually in the licensing world, as we often know, working in licensing, it is popularity comes first. So it would always be picking the most popular, but that just doesn't work for Every Cherry. There are some really popular episodes that we've put in the mix, but also the fact is we want episodes that are going to work for children. We want the storylines that are actually going to work for the community.
There's a reason why you've chosen them. 100%.
I think as well, so we obviously had help from the Sen community choosing these titles, but we've also been asked to provide the next list for 2027. And we put a list together, and we actually have somebody called Ella who is our marketing assistant. She has Down syndrome, and everything goes through her as well. So the list had to be approved by her before it actually got sent off, and she gave feedback, and she also proofreads all of the books and gives feedback on those. And so sometimes she'll say that symbol of the moon actually looks like a ball.
Right.
So let's change it. And so you get that.
That's so valuable.
In-house expertise, but she's also done great for audio work. She's absolutely brilliant, but a lot goes through her. And with the signing videos as well.
Yes, we get told off.
She'll watch the sign videos and she'll say, that sign's wrong, and so we have to go back and film it. And now recently, and she does a lot of the sign videos with us, but she proof checks all of the signs whilst we're filming. And she'll say, it's okay, Emma, but you did get that one wrong.
I did tell her we were going to get her a director's chair.
And a clapperboard.
But it's fantastic to have, like you say, the in-house expertise, to know that people are there who, and because Ella as well will read using symbols too, that's great to have someone there who will be like, well, you as maybe someone who would read using text might not see this and might not actually understand how that comes across to a symbol reader.
She does see things in a different way and picks up on things that we would never have considered, which is brilliant. However, potentially harshly she might put it. Because she'll
especially after the fifth proof or something, and then you're like, okay.
Don't worry, Emma. I know I could potentially do better, but let me show you. So we do love that. So I think now we have spoken about how popular brands can become more accessible in the Sen community and how important it is. And I have seen steps, especially with Peppa, but with other... I feel like, as well, since the white paper's come out at the beginning of the year, talking about how we can better improve Sen provision in schools, and then we've got the National Year of Reading, I do feel like we've had quite a boost for the Sen community. And as somebody working with Peppa, obviously we've spoken about how important it is, and Mum, to Orla, how do we think that that's going to continue? Do you think the momentum will continue? And how can we do that? How can we make that happen?
It's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, and I think, it makes me so sad that reading for pleasure is declining. And that there are so many children who are read because they have to, because it's what they're told to do at school, but they're not reading outside of school for pleasure. And that's the big challenge, isn't it? And, World Book Day was amazing. Peppa had a great World Book Day.
Yes, she did.
And funnily enough, the best-selling book was Bunny versus Monkey, which is a graphic novel. So I think we need to look at the outside of the traditional book as well. I think that's so important that, it's not just about, and this is not just about the Sen books, but, audiobooks. That's reading too. That's consuming those stories as well and enjoying that storytelling. And I think bite-sized chunks of book. It doesn't have to. You don't have to sit down and read a whole book, and that's quite overwhelming for some people. So I think it's so important that we look at reading differently, and it's not just about that traditional sit down with a great big novel, which puts so many people off. There's so many ways to consume and enjoy a story. And I hope that we are able to, broaden people's experiences in reading and make it more enjoyable. But it is very challenging because obviously the competition is a phone and an iPad.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not so much TV anymore, I don't think. I mean, YouTube, but it's phones. Phones have really taken that space. A lot of children don't have a lot of spare time, and they want some downtime, and they just. And we all do it. A bit of scrolling.
Doom scrolling.
And then before you know it, it's time for dinner or whatever. And your time, your window to read has gone. So
I think that's why graphic novels are having such a moment right now.
Yeah.
Because it's so visual, it's so in your face. It's also really short and snappy. There are so many different types of reader out there. And especially for those who might be, as we say, like a little bit of a reluctant reader, and potentially someone who might find it just really overwhelming to pick up a book and be faced with pages and pages of text. They're a great alternative to that. And anything I think that can break down the stories is a really good read.
So I think that's the future. I think we are a lot more impatient, and we want instant gratification, instant results, instant enjoyment. And I think that things are changing, and that's how we consume content now and media. So I think books need to reflect that as well, and sort of
and the publishing industry is always a teeny step behind in terms of sort of facing those trends and stuff. But I think it's slowly getting there, because we are seeing, certainly from sort of like middle grade and upwards, books are getting a little bit shorter. And we are seeing that like word counts decreasing, page numbers are decreasing. And I think that is actually attuning to what children are used to now. And I think doing a slightly shorter book, but still giving them an adventure, still giving them something that's going to grip them, short snappy chapters and things will actually work to ensure that we can get children, tease them away from the phone every now and again and be like, just try this.
And I think having books in accessible places, so it's not just Waterstones or which is, I know it's not just about Waterstones anymore, but going to your Lidl or Aldi or wherever you shop, B&M or whatever,
it's
you can buy your
on
books
every level.
in every level. Exactly.
Because I think there's like multiple communities, as we say, and like socioeconomic barriers are just as big as any other barrier to reading.
Books can be expensive. So I think it's important that and most publishers are doing a good job now in making sure that books are everywhere and they are accessible in that way. But I think all of those things are important, and I hope that the Year of Reading will raise more awareness and make reading more enjoyable.
I think as well, I had a discussion with on a panel about the psychology of choice as well, and how people choose to read and access books, and the barriers of, you were talking about screen time. But then I also feel like sometimes things like TikTok really do heighten books. So now like you'll see so many books being advertised online, and they're becoming cool. And so people have these amazing bookshelves with these amazing books, and they've read piles and piles of books, and it's become cool. So it's trying to tap into that, because I would say that is more of a young adult, but how do we get that to children? And I think it's almost using the screens and the social media to that advantage, because you do get these realms of different books, like we would like romantasy. That's huge now, and it's become its own
all
thing.
Thanks to Book Talk.
All thanks to Book Talk. So it's how do we get that out there for a younger audience, because obviously.
And they're having their Book Talk Awards now, aren't they? That's like going to be the first thing that's going to be actually doing like a top list on Book Talk.
I mean, influencers as well, I think, are so important now. We've all got our favourite influencers and people we follow, and children do as well. And, it's those people have quite a big responsibility in terms of leading and guiding children. And I think there's a lot that they can do. On social media too.
I think, like you were saying with TV, because you used to have like the BBC News or ITV or whatever it was,
and that Peter and you
Peter, and that would be what guided us
for a badge still.
But now there's so many influencers that, like you said, children will have their favourite ones, but they will speak about something specific, but it's using that responsibility to get the right message out there.
Well, I think it's the parents and the children's influencers as well, because we work with TikTok sensation, as I always know him, Mr. G on ADHD Wrapped Up, which was an incredible success story for the book because it ended up being a Sunday Times bestseller. And that was hugely thanked to the fact that, you know, he did so much on TikTok to help push it as well, and he has this really connected audience. And I think that as well sort of like roots us back with Peppa as well, like you have such a connected audience to the brand. You have so many families who have either, you know, actually raised their children through it, or have, you know, bringing new children to it and are really, really connected to it as part of their daily routine. And then I think everything that's done on the Peppa socials and things also brings it right back to getting it back to there. And I think that's why having a brand in a book is such a powerful motive to getting a child to read, because it's like, oh, you've seen this on screen and you've seen it here and you've seen it on social media, and look, mummy's looking at it too, and you can see it
the
here.
bedtime story. Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I think we wanted to talk about on this podcast was how Tori and I's roles have intertwined, especially through Peppa, because...
Not going to sing two become one.
But because obviously Every Cherry was all about accessible reading, and honestly, 2.5 years ago when I think it was even 2 years ago when we published our first title, never did I ever imagine that 2 years down the line we'd be sitting here talking about our partnership with Peppa. And that's largely down to you, Tori, as well, for all the hard work you've done in licensing and how we've
it's very much
come
a collaboration.
Together.
Very much
it
a collaboration.
Is, but I think, like we've said before, licensing has such a huge amount of power to get books into children's hands because of such lovable characters.
Yes,
and it's how we've come together somehow in that.
We have, and I think it's also navigating the world of brands in the way that, like, thankfully we both have our individual expertise, but thankfully we both do have a similar way of thinking as well, which I don't think is very nice for the rest of the team, but it's not so fun.
No.
But it's great to actually have sort of like a partner in crime when you're navigating the world of brands, because you know what it's like, Casey, when you're out there, there's so many different characters to choose from, there's so many different brands to choose from, and especially when going around something like a fair, or you're booking meetings in with people because it might be a licensing fair or a book fair or something, it's quite tricky sometimes to choose which will be the brand that is going to best fit your audience, and which brand is also going to best fit, you know, the future of Every Cherry. And we want to make sure we're future-proofing everything. Hence why Peppa was such an awesome fit, because it's, you know,
20 plus years. Here we are.
So we were pretty certain on the future-proofing of that. We're like, don't worry, we've got a good one here. But we do work together.
Yeah, we do work together well.
A lot of the choices are very collaborative. A lot of the discussions are very collaborative. There's sort of we like to say we share the Every Cherry sprinkling the magic. Everyone sort of goes out and spreads the same message now. I think it's really interesting listening to each other when we pitch as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we obviously have slightly different ways of speaking.
It's a shared voice, isn't it?
It's a shared voice,
it's a
shared message. Some of us take 3 hours, some of us do it quite snappily.
But I think as well, for me as a teacher, the licensing world is something that I obviously bought licensed projects, but I didn't
realise it existed
really,
as a job that people did.
No one does.
No one does.
No, I know. And so I think it's really opened my eyes of how to get books to the right people, but how to be really specific in the brands that you work with, because it's so overwhelming. Like, we went to the licensing awards and there's so many licenses, and it's quite overwhelming. Like, that room was chocker full of brands,
and it's telling, like, it's always interesting as well, because I was showing you who comes from each brand as well, and I think that's always like an interesting backstory.
And it's also, like we were saying, it's the keeping to your roots and having best fit, because there's so many amazing brands out there. But you can't just go with any brand. You have to be really specific with what the SEND community will want, but what the brand will want and how we can align well. And I think we've done that really well with Peppa. But I also think you've got a very good eye.
Well, I think
who
it's
to
all
speak
about
to.
trust as well, isn't it? Because obviously we had a connection with Katie before you actually even moved to Hasbro, which was
Yes.
lovely. So that was very handy there. But also it's about knowing which brands parents trust as well. So we work with a variety of brands across the Sweet Cherry list and across the Every Cherry list. And of course, we've also done symbolised number blocks as well.
Yeah.
Again, we wanted to make sure that, firstly, the brands we were taking on with Every Cherry would be very distinct, very separate. Nothing was going to do the same job as each other. I think Peppa covers so much of the social, emotional, mental health side of education, and then we have the more academic side of education going in with number blocks and the blocks universe. And so we're like, right, we've really hit two key pillars there. And that's an aim that we want to continue.
Yeah, and so many brands are sometimes just more girls, some are more
Yes.
boys.
Yeah.
And I think that's another challenge. And if you have a brand that really is gender neutral and that you've got, which I think Peppa is, then I think you're onto a win as well. That's a huge bonus.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think it's
because
it's
you're cutting
family
off half your
neutral
audience,
as well, isn't it?
if you only have something that's very girl focused.
Yes, and I think it does that great job of, it's one of those brands that, like you say, you watch when the children go outside of the room.
Yeah.
I remember when
You
we
do.
were recording the signed video, I think it was for baby names. And they had to keep pausing it because I was laughing when she was like, traffic light.
I know. That's
just
hilarious. Seatbelt. Yeah, that's a great episode. That one.
Dan was laughing at me and I was like, they've really just captured my humour in this one.
Yeah. Well, the humour appeals on multiple levels.
Yes.
Which
But I
think
think
is always,
I think that's why Peppa is such a great brand, because as a parent, when you have a 2-year-old, life is busy and tiring, and when you get a few little jokes in there for the grown-ups, it's like, oh,
sort of like relief.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
So I think we have pretty much done a really big circle on where we've began and where we've come to, and how brands and reading can come together and how they've come together for Peppa. But on a personal level, what are we reading at the moment, and what are our favourite books?
Oh, well, we could be here for hours now.
I know.
know.
Shall we?
Because
I am reading. Well, actually, I say I'm reading, but I think it's the same thing. I'm listening to an audiobook, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I think mainly because you can multitask so much. I have 3 children, not just Orla, but I have twins as well, and a full-time job, and life is busy. But if I'm walking somewhere, or I'm cooking, or I'm mowing the lawn, or whatever I'm doing, I can listen to my audiobook at the same time. Plus, I always forget my glasses wherever I'm going, and I'm in denial that I need them probably. So I sometimes, if I've got my book and I don't have my glasses, I can't read. So I'm listening to Remarkably Bright Creatures at the moment, which is Shelby Van Pelt, which is about a 70-year-old woman who is a cleaner in an aquarium, and she befriends an octopus.
I love that.
And I know that sounds ridiculous.
No, that sounds like a dream job.
But it's such a lovely book, and I'm probably about halfway through.
That sounds
and
wonderful.
I'm really enjoying it, and it's very different. But
Would you say
really
you're
lovely.
a reader for escapism?
Yes, definitely.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's definitely my way of escapism.
Yeah,
for sure.
I actually look forward to, once the children are in bed, laptops off, just to be able to just read. It's like one of the favourite parts of my day, which is an awful thing to admit as a mum and a professional,
no,
but
not
it
at all.
is escapism, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
I
totally
think it
is.
And I think it's like when you're an overthinker, which guilty, it allows you to get out of your own head, doesn't it? For just that little hour that you can sit down, or it depends how good the book is, obviously, might be a few hours. Who needs to sleep? And just like get out of your own thoughts, let the day rest, let yourself go into somewhere else, into a magical adventure. I mean, I will admit to I only ever read children's books. Bar a few classics, I'm terrible at reading adults' books. So I'm rereading Wizards of Once at the moment by Cressida Cowell.
That's a great book, yeah.
One of my favourite ever series. She is just incredible. And I'm also, audiobook-wise, The Adventures of Morrigan Crow. If you've not listened to it, just the voice work on that, the artistry is just, you're like so captured the second you press play. And it's just absolutely awesome. So yeah, favourite book though is obviously neither of those. The Grinch, Dr. Seuss, which no book will ever beat, but yeah.
I think I really struggle to have a favourite book because I think that's just an impossible question. But growing up, I was a big bookworm. I read a lot. I loved Enid Blyton. I loved Judy Blume as well was one of my favourite authors as well. Agatha Christie as well. I used to remember hide under the bedclothes with my torch reading Agatha Christie books until late into the night. But Judy Blume, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I don't know if you ever read that book.
I have not actually.
I read that, and that stuck with me growing up. And it's a book about growing up in puberty, and it was something that really struck a chord, and I read it over and over and over. And I don't often reread books, but I did reread that. And I met Judy Blume at an event once, and I was utterly starstruck and speechless. It really was. So I thought, yes, that's one of my most
I can understand why. I saw Julia Donaldson speaking at the Nibbies, and I was sat there like,
wow. yeah, I know. Yeah, I think books take you on a journey, because there's some books, and we had this discussion before. One of my favourite books is Wuthering Heights, but I remember reading that, studying it at A level as an 18-year-old, and then I have reread it. I always know when I've got a favourite book, so I'll reread them. Yeah. And Wuthering Heights is probably the book that I've reread the most in my life. But it means different things at different times in your life. So when you read it as an 18-year-old, you are just entering that adult world, and obviously Wuthering Heights is romance, but there's so many other undertones to it. But then when you read it as a 40-year-old mum, it's very different, and so you take different things from text, and that's what I love about having a favourite book, because actually when you read them for the however many times, you actually take something else from it because of where you are in your life, and I really like that. And for children's books wise, we obviously two kids, we've had loads of books, but at the moment we're reading the you should read these, Tori. I think you would really like them. The 13 story Treehouse books.
Yeah.
So my kids were, I would say it's taken them a while to find what they love, but this series has captivated both of them, and it is so ridiculously silly that it's just brilliant. We just read a little bit about National Stick a Chair Up Your Nose Day. And it was,
I hope the boys didn't try it.
No, but everyone tries it. Even the postman joined in. And when you're reading something that's silly before bed, the laughs you get from it. It was just so funny. And I was like, this is so ridiculous, but it is so brilliant. And I remember reading it with Jack, my little boy, and I was, this is just hilarious. And then it just silliness like that, escapism for children as well as adults, which I think is key. So Tori, that's something to add to your list.
Adding to the TBR
Lemony
list.
Snicket. Did you read all those?
I loved Lemony Snicket, and
they were brilliant.
What's the one about milk? They forgot the milk or something, the Lemony Snicket book, and it's so brilliant. I loved it. I think I stole it off someone, actually. I should probably give it back.
My kids also like to read the books and then watch this if there's a TV, an adaptation or a movie. But I never let them watch the film first. They have to read the books first. And then maybe we listen to an audiobook in the car, which we do a lot, and then we'll watch the film or whatever.
That's such a good practice for them.
Yes,
that is good practice for them, because I think I did the same with the recent Wuthering Heights coming out. I was rereading Wuthering Heights before. And then it does give you a really interesting view of remembering what the actual story is in the book and then watching the film. And I was like, I find it very captivating, but very interesting.
I always, because you have a certain view of what a character's going to look like, don't you, in your head? And then when you see, I feel like sometimes it can either ruin it, or sometimes in some very small, odd occasions, the film is really, really good.
Yeah.
And not. But I do remember a friend of mine, actually, we were walking through a park, and she was like, that person there looks like the Heathcliff in my imagination. And she'd actually seen the real person. I was like, hey, that's really odd. God. But
I think I'd be really tempted to go talk to them. Yeah. It would be a really weird conversation where you're like, you look like Heathcliff.
Anyway, I think we now have come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for having me. I could sit and talk to you all day.
I know. I think we could, and I think we are
chat
in
about
danger.
Books all day. Yeah.
I'm waiting for Dan
to flash the red light and be like, enough
now. Enough. So, with that in mind, thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for the opportunity you've given us for Every Cherry and for Peppa. I think it's been such an amazing journey. We're still on the journey. We're still
there's so much more to do.
There's so much more to do. But thank you so much for giving it a go and
helping spread the message.
It's been brilliant.
I think we're equally grateful to you for doing such a great job. And as I said, it's so thoughtfully done and passionately
Oh.
We do.
Yeah.
We'll sing the theme tune if you want to.
Yeah. I'll test you later.
At request.
So for listeners out there, so thank you to Katie. Thank you from Tori and I as well for listening. Just to let everybody know about what's coming up. So book-wise, we are releasing At the Beach and Baby Names, the symbolised version for Peppa Pig. They will be coming out at the end of May. So they're the Peppa Pig symbolised story in picture book format. And then in June, we will be releasing the symbolised Coach Peppa title, where Peppa coaches Daddy Pig on how to run the marathon.
So if you enjoyed the weekend's events,
Yeah, what a great job she did.
Yes, she
what
did.
a great job she did.
She got him down to 5 hours, so I think she's done.
And for
I'll be hiring her as a personal trainer soon.
Marathon runners, I mean, you can always
Take advice from Peppa.
Take advice from Peppa. So those ones are coming out, and then I know, Tori, we've got an event coming up.
We do. So on the 6th of June, we have an event at the Peppa Pig store in Battersea Power Station in London. You can check out their website actually for details now. It will be a very special Peppa Pig reading, some interactive activities. There'll be one at 9:30am and there'll be a following one at around midday. The 9:30am one is a send-friendly, quieter session. So if you have children who prefer a quieter, relaxed environment, please do come along to that. There's tickets on the website, completely free, but it is just ticketed for numbers. And we would love to see any children, families, parents. Don't have to have a child, just if you like Peppa.
Yeah,
come along.
It's a great
Come
store.
along, yeah. And also a big shout out to the National Year of Reading, which we've done a lot of talking about today, and to our Spotify page where you can find more episodes of Chats Under the Cherry Tree. But thank you very much, Katie.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks.
And thanks, team.